Karla, and I love David Oliver. When I was asked to speak briefly about David as a mentor, I made a list of lessons David Oliver taught me. I think you would be pleased to learn that many of the items on the list had very little to do with work. For example, David taught me how to get discounts on cruise ship spa services. I'll let you in on the secret. It's all about quantity. 2 people who want unlimited access to the heated deck chairs aren't worth anyone's time, but 12 people who want unlimited access to the heated deck chairs. Now that's a force to be reckoned with. David also taught me how to determine whether a restaurant was truly, quote, a highbrow establishment. The answer is the restroom. And that no research retreat agenda was complete without dedicated time for fun. David Oliver approved strategy for breaking up a long road trip late in seeing the sights. For example, while recently returning from a conference in Branson, Missouri, David insisted we stop to visit a rest stop that was, and I quote, the very best in the entire world. We had some time in the car, so I thought I'd learn a bit more about this international rest stop competition, the logistics of which seemed fairly daunting. Did people vote on this? If so, who? Is the concept of a rest stop equally relevant across the globe? Was this contest truly worldwide? Or like the so-called World Series in baseball, was it really just a bunch of U.S. rest stops, with the Canadian ones thrown in for good measure? The more questions I asked, the more skeptical I became, and the bigger David's smile grew. I eventually guessed, much too late to brag about, that I was experiencing firsthand the Oliver Institute of BS, or the OIB, the rules of which are contained in your program today. In fairness to David, the rest stop was pretty cool. And I hope you think of him if you ever have the pleasure of using the facilities at the Route 66 themed rest stop just east of Springfield, Missouri. Of course, those of us who were lucky enough to be among David's colleagues can attest to the many ways he mentored students and emerging scholars in a professional capacity, drawing on his decades of experience in healthcare to improve services provided to older adults and their families. In fact, as many of you know, just 3 days before he died, he Skyped into a faculty meeting to present the 2015 David B. Oliver, University of Missouri, Department of Family and Community Medicine Faculty Award, established by David's family in his honor. This represents just one of the countless ways David's mentorship and support will benefit the fields of geriatrics and palliative care for years to come. In the sports world, it has been said that someone has been a good coach if when he or she leaves, others carry on successfully. It is therefore my plan to stop at the good rest stops, stretch the truth from time to time in the spirit of the OIB moves me, and to work diligently to ensure that David's legacy lives on in the work we do every day with older adults. I thank David's beautiful family for sharing this great man with me.
Hi, I'm Kevin, and I love David Oliver. So I recorded a video because I wasn't sure I could make it through this. And I'm certain that since I was wearing Oklahoma regalia in the video, David has ensured that it's not going to work. So I'll try to make it through. When I heard that I had 5 minutes to talk about David, I thought there was absolutely no way that I can say what I have to say in 5 minutes. And the stories that I have to tell about David in 5 minutes. And then I realized that most of the stories that I have about David, I can't repeat in public. So, I'll give it a shot. David and I really became friends when I joined the faculty here at MU, and some really wise person put my office next to David's. David discovered that I was a Sooner fan, and that's when it all took off. I would frequently come in and find my door with newspaper clippings of any spring event that Oklahoma had lost, taped to my door to let everyone else know that Oklahoma had lost. This is regardless of what Mizzou did that weekend at all. David was, well, my introduction to the OIB, Oliver Institute of BS, was when Oklahoma lost to Florida in the national championship in 2009. And I return. Now, most of my friends, sporting friends, we all really don't give each other a hard time because we know we take our losses pretty hard. David would give me a day of mourning, and then he would jump on. So, with Oklahoma losing to Florida, he could not wait to tell me how much better a season Mizzou had than Oklahoma did. I said, David, Oklahoma lost in the national championship. Mizzou won the Alamo Bowl. I said, yeah. Mizzou won, Oklahoma lost. So I was going to tell you about I did not know it was going to be in your program, but the rules for the Olive Institute of VS, so I won't read through that. But I've earned a few degrees in my life and a few diplomas, but really one that I'm most proud of is my certificate for membership into the Olive Institute of VS. They've certainly taught us a lot. And one of the things that he really taught me in the video, and I say the video, I know there's lots of videos, but to me there's the video. And that was the first one where he told our department about his cancer. And he called me the day before on his way to Kansas City with Peggy. Said, make sure you go to the faculty meeting tomorrow. And he wouldn't tell me why. So if you watch the video and you see that he tells you that he's bought 2 puke bags. One for the hated Kansas Jayhawks, and the other one, a Sooner bucket. And he tells you that, you know who this is for, and I can't tell you what he said he would deliver it to me with, but I do have a puke bucket, and it is a prized possession. So I was supposed to talk about David as explorer. I think the slideshow certainly did a lot more justice than I could to the way he explored the world. There's another website that's not listed in your program, and it is David and Debbie's Globetrotting Tigers blog site. And according to that, they took at least 30 cruises together. I counted 30, maybe there's more, I'm sure. I was surprised it was that long. From Egypt and Israel in 1995 to the Mediterranean in October of 2013. Included several trips to Alaska, the Caribbean, the trip around South America, Europe, and of course his Medicare cruise, as he called it, to Asia in 2007. Dr. Zweig already referred to a lot of his academic endeavors, but the other part of exploring was his research. And he was certainly a leader in case management across the continuum of care, long-term care, chronic care, and aging. And he was certainly passionate about that. Certainly, probably most importantly, he taught us about life and about death. So, I didn't get the daily Zen messages that Dr. Zweig did, but I got nearly daily Zen messages from David. And they also included his own interpretation. The last one that he sent me was a quote from Wang Ho in the 9th century. The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see. Observe things as they are, and don't pay attention to other people. I think that probably summed up David as well as anything. He added to it, listen to thyself, what know you see. Observe, appreciate, do not reject. This last entry on his blog, the Globetrotting Tigers blog, August 22nd, 2014, from Rocky Mountain National Park, he noted, fragrant scents provide reward. Breathe in, breathe out. That's what David would want us to do today. Breathe in, breathe out.
My name is Deborah, and I love David. It's really nice looking up and seeing a whole group of people that love David. David was a good listener, and he was a good talker. And I think he really valued good communication and honest communication. I first met him at a time when I had been really working hard to try and improve communication between the health department and the hospital. And there had been time after time that there had been miscommunication that impacted patient care, and it was just really challenging. Each time it came up, I tried to figure out who I needed to talk to make it better. And then finally it was David who was the one that was answering those phone calls. And David really listened. And he really worked to try and get to the root of the problem. And more than anything, he had faith that communication could improve in a way that would make things better. And later, when I got to know David as a person and as a colleague, I recognized that that was one of his values, was that we can communicate and we can improve communication to make things better. I think that when we are faced with adversity, often it is a real test of our values and our character. And many of us falter when that happens. And I actually got to know David's character and his values better when he was faced with adversity. And I think that many of his character sort of solidified, and it became more evident to people when he was dealing with his cancer and adversity. I remember one day I walked outside. I had the good fortune of having an office next to him also, and I walked out into the hallway. And this was when David was going through chemo, and he had some really rough times with that. But this was a good day. And he was walking down the hall, and he just was so happy, and he was just so present and so mindful of the moment. And I just was envying him. I thought, man, I just envy him because he is not missing any bit of this day. And then it occurred to me, here's David with terminal cancer, and I'm envying him, because he's figured out how to not miss the day. And there's so few people that I know that have really mastered that. And it's one of the lessons that I think David really tried to pass on to all of us, is that we have that within our ability to not miss the important parts and to be very mindful of the day and to live fully. I want to say that one other value that I was aware of with David is how he was mindful of other people's needs. And Jessica mentioned this, but the story that really highlights that for me is one that, with her permission, I will share. But Peggy Gray told me that when David called her to let her know about his diagnosis, he's calling Peggy, his dear friend and coworker, and when he called her to let her know, he said to her, "Are you okay?" And here's David, and he's wanting to make sure that she was coping okay with the news of his diagnosis. And that to me really exemplifies David, but it shows that even before his illness, that was a real value of his. And it just was solidified and made more evident to those of us that interacted with him and to all of the people he interacted with by his illness, where he chose to share that with us. In some of the circles that I work in, we talk about how good ideas spread like a virus. That they spread from one person to another and then to another, and pretty soon you have this whole network that's been impacted by personal relationships and communications. And because David and Debbie chose so generously to share their journey, really all of David's lessons really did spread. They were viral. They have impacted so many people. And not just the initial people, but all of the ways that it's spread to the future patients of students and learners who have learned from him, and to all of us who have new skills and new examples for dealing with adversity in our own lives and for dealing with patients and their family members. So I just want to make one last little comment about, you heard Karla mentioned about how David Skyped into the faculty meeting on the Wednesday before he passed away. And, David was very cheery and gave lots of thumbs up and talked about all sorts of things and was present to be able to share this award with Paul. And the amazing thing to me was, afterwards, I learned from Debbie and his family that really was like a last push for him. That was one of the last days that he was really talking and communicating in sentences, and you would never know that from the video, that he really shared himself with everyone, and that it was incredibly meaningful for him to be there and to share that with us. And I'll just comment that I suspect that he probably knew in his vein of being mindful of other people's needs, how much many of us needed to have that. That was an incredible gift he gave many of us to be able to say goodbye to him. And that he recognized the importance of relationships and of communication, and that he gave us this incredible gift of communicating with us one last time and letting us say goodbye to him and letting him know how much he meant to us. So, top of the afternoon to you, David, and thank you to Debbie and family, and here's to all of us who carry part of David forward with us as we go on with life.
We read a special letter received by David from his nephew, Chris Parker, who loved David Oliver. So let's say hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
I don't really know how to start. There's so much I can say, so many questions I have, so many things I can learn from you. Laughs to share, tears to shed, grammatically incorrect sentences to finish. I wonder how you came by that. I'll start by saying I don't have very many memories before you were a member of our family. It feels like you always have been and you always will be. The transition into our family was so seamless, from my point of view anyway, that I don't really remember the times before. The memories I do have are always full of laughter, over-the-top stories, epic hand-and-boot tournaments. You know the ones I'm talking about, cards flying all over the place, the air thick with belly laughs and swearing. You teaching us kids how to gamble, craps, blackjack, roulette. It didn't really matter what we were doing as a family, you always helped ensure it was fun. I'll never forget our vacation in the Ozarks. We got on a pontoon boat for the afternoon out on the lake. The waves were so big that the anchor crashed through the gate at the front, denting it horribly. The image of you and my dad sprinting out of sight after we returned the boat. Giggling like a couple of 12-year-olds. I never heard if they charged us for the damage to the boat, but either way, that remains one of my favorite stories to tell. You've always been so accepting to all the strangers we've brought to you, from the mostly idiotic boyfriends of the girls, to the handful of crazy, now ex-girlfriends I showed up with. You've opened your doors to them and at least given them a shot. I consider myself very lucky. Most of the time, we don't get a chance to say goodbye to our loved ones. Usually it happens suddenly, leaving a lot of regret on the table for not saying that one last goodbye. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm also lucky for being able to do this in email form. I'm getting choked up typing this. I can't imagine trying to do this in person. It's difficult to put into words the kind of impact you've had on my life. When I was little, you would always listen to what I had to say, even if it was the mindless ramblings of a little kid or a story that had no real point. You always had a good advice to give me when I needed it, even when I didn't always take it. You've always been supportive, even when I made mistakes or when I was a college dropout flipping burgers for a living. I'm happy to report that after those dark years following college, I'm in a good place. I have a good job that I enjoy, and I'm financially stable. I want to thank you for all that you've done, not only for me, but for the whole family. You've been a loving husband to Debbie, an excellent father to the girls, a wonderful uncle to Sarah and me, and a grandfather to baby Oliver. You've given us all so much. We have stories we can tell for years, pictures from just about every family gathering, a burning hatred for everything KU. We all know that the chicken hawks are the worst. That's KU, not UK. Straight on that. Jokes we can't tell in polite company and memories we'll never forget. You've left your mark on us all, and we're better people for it. There's so much more I could say, but it's hard to put all into words. I tried my best to convey to you, the words fall short. I'm thankful for every second we have shared, and I'm proud to have known you. With love from your favorite nephew, Chris.
Good afternoon. My name is Jess, and I love David Oliver.
Hi, Jess.
I'm also an alcoholic, and as Betsy talked a little bit, David had his demons. And I did not know David in 1984, unfortunately. I can't believe our paths didn't cross. We were both in service to higher education in Missouri, and we lived 20 miles from him in Atchison, Kansas for several years, and I do not remember David from the 80s. But I can say that no one gets to AA because they hear they have good coffee. And we all know David loved good coffee. One of my first remembrances of David is that he was at the coffee shop. My family and I own B&B Bagel here in town, and my son wanted us to do certain things, and some of those were wiping tables. And I remember David saying something about, who buys these bananas? They're great. And so from then on, I knew he was the banana man. Well, not long after that, my wife started working for the Alzheimer's Association, and David was very, very involved in the board. In fact, I was very jealous of him that he could ride 70 miles for the Alzheimer's rally in 2011. I'm sorry, it was 70 miles. But when we alcoholics or we addicts, we get down, and as Betsy said, he had some personal demons that he had to deal with. And he also talked about the change with the Sprite instead of beer. And right after Debbie asked me to speak, I opened up Facebook, and there was a saying on there that said, sometimes when you fall down, it's because there was something down there you need to find. And in my opinion, David found the experience, strength, and hope of a recovering alcoholic. And he also found service to others. And last August, when my wife and I found out we were going to be on a similar path, David was the first one of the first ones to the hospital to share his hope, experience, and with us as we started down this path. And I want to say thank you, Debbie, for that. It meant a lot to have a friend there and to be with us and to share that experience and show us the way. And he was certainly showed us the way to face this path. And his service to others is legendary, as we've all said today. And to celebrate his 31 years, I have a coin. One of the things Alcoholics Anonymous do is we give a coin for each year to commemorate a year of sobriety. And part of the things we do is we pass that around, and each one in the meeting says a word of kindness to it and takes something back from that. So if you would, as I pass this around, say a little prayer for David and his family. Thank you.
I hope I don't make it tonight, but my name is Bob, and I belong in the same organization that this young man does. David was a great brother. I knew I was going to do this. You know, we had a lot of things that we did, some things we didn't want to fess up to. But that's the way things go. I can remember he came out to Arizona where I live. I live in Tucson. And we got a way, and he said, I quit drinking. that just cheered me up big time. Because I had already done that, and it's tough. But Dave and I, we've done a lot of things together. Some we won't talk about. But, you know, I've made many trips back to Columbia here to see David. And he's come to Arizona, where I live. And they've always been great visits. Now, at this time. He and I were very close, and one thing led to another. He went his way, I went mine. His, you all know. I now know. But I chose kind of run the road on the other side of the street. But I found out, once I found out what life was all about, it was a different story. And the life got better. I was actually paid visits, which never happened before. But, you know, life goes on. And I'm just real happy to be here. David wasn't feeling good. And I knew that. I got back over here, two and a half weeks ago. We got to talk to Dave and be with David and Deb and some of the family. And it was great. I went back to Arizona, and not too long afterwards I got a call. I knew I was going to get the call. It was not a surprise, but I knew I was going to have to come back. And you know, I told myself I wasn't going to get all shook up, but you know how that goes, right out the window. But I'm so happy that he found this loving family here in Columbia. And you all are here, and I appreciate that. And I can tell you, he loved every one of them. He loved this school. He really did. He loved the people associated to it, his colleagues, and everything about it. Oh, he and I get in arguments about basketball and football and stuff like that. But that's normal. But I appreciate everybody that's here. I'm glad I'm here. And he's not in pain anymore. He's looking down at me right now saying, well, I'm not going to say what you probably said. But anyway, he's in a better place. And I'm real happy about that.
Hi again. I'm reading this on behalf of Lee, so let's say hi to Lee.
Hi, Lee.
I do have to leave my glasses on for this one. My name is Lee Yancey, and David was my best friend in high school. I expect that with the exception of his brother Bob, I have known David longer than anyone gathered there today. I am truly sorry that I cannot be there today. Last week, my wife and I moved into a continuing care retirement community so that she can get the care she needs for a progressive neurological disease. I wish David were here, so I could tell him about life on the inside. As a gerontologist, he knew a lot about these places. You all know David from his professional life. Let me tell you a little bit about the David Oliver I knew growing up. I'm not sure exactly when David and Bob and their mom Marguerite moved to Springfield and into the house across the street with their grandparents and aunt, but it was sometime in our early teens. David and I are essentially the same age. He is 13 days older than I am. We went to different schools, but still spent a lot of time together riding bikes and doing things kids do. After a while, David and his multi-generational family moved into a bigger house around the corner, but still in the neighborhood. We got our driver's licenses and spent time thinking of ridiculous reasons why we needed to get the family car and drive somewhere. Just to drive. We double dated everywhere. In our junior year in high school, David joined me at Greenwood, the lab school for Southwest Missouri State, which was then primarily a teacher's college. David fit right in. And our senior year, he was elected student council president. Now, that was at a school where more than half of the graduating class of 15 boys and 15 girls had been in school together since they were in kindergarten or first grade. So you can see that for a new guy to be elected student council president was quite something, and illustrative of his leadership ability. David played on all of the sports teams and had a flair for theatrics. I vividly remember one basketball game when he was defending a guy who started to drive around him. David stumbled backward and fell to the floor with a crash and looked at the ref for a charging call, which he got. The player with the ball protested that he hadn't touched it, which he hadn't, but to no avail. That probably doesn't surprise anybody. David's first teaching job was at the School of the Ozarks. He was very excited about Michael, and when he began to talk, David told me his first word was poontang, which is an old Southern phrase, and if you are not familiar with it, that's okay. I actually don't. We'll talk. Of course, I have no way of knowing if that's really true, as David was known to embellish things from time to time. I've heard it said that if you have 5 really good friends in life, then you've had a good life. As you look around today, I'm sure you will see that David had many friends, and probably more than 5 really good ones. I know that he is one of the 5 in my life. He was the kind of friend that you could call on the phone and talk for a while and not have to explain anything. He understood. I heard a talk a few days ago by David McCullough, the historian. He said that he is trying to stop people from using the phrase gone but not forgotten. You're not gone. Even though we have been separated by many miles for some time, David was, will be my good buddy. I will not forget him. I do miss him. Thanks, David. One more, and this is for Peggy. Let's say hi to Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
On August 31st, 2009, something life-altering happened to me. An opening for a program project coordinator became available in the Interdisciplinary Center on Aging, and I applied. Luckily for me, I got the job, and so began my relationship with David as boss. Now, I did have the pleasure of knowing David for 9 years before I officially started working for him, so I had a bit of an idea about what I was getting into. We first met in 2000 while developing a new program, the Senior Teacher Educator Partnership, STEP. David, ever the sociologist, was instinctively aware that placing students and seniors together would create friendships and caring. Over the years, David was a constant at every STEP event for as long as his health allowed, and so much of the program's success can be credited to his support. So getting back to my first day in the center, it was August. That means summer. That means hot. And heat, not air conditioning, was pouring out of the vents in our new office space. As you can imagine, neither of us, especially David, was very happy about the situation. And after we were both told by a variety of so-called experts that the problem was impossible to remedy, I saw David's management style turn on full force. Charm, humor, persistence, and yes, anger and annoyance. The whole gamut. Needless to say, the furnace got fixed. But that was an exceptional circumstance. As most of you know, David's normal set point is cheerful and jolly. His ease with people combined with his intuition and understanding made him a great manager and teacher. He gave superb feedback, honest, helpful, and kind. He had high standards and was liberal with praise when it was deserved. Way to go, he would shout, and high fives and fist bumps ensued. From David, I learned the value of making people feel good about their jobs, both as a recipient of his praise and as an observer of him praising others. He expected and acclaimed excellence and could easily make people puff up with pride about a job well done. But woe betide the sorry soul who didn't live up to his standards. At the Center on Aging, we received frequent calls from student reporters, and I cringed, remembering the dressing downs he would give those unprepared kids who dared to interview him before doing their research. But when they got it right, he made them feel like superstars. David was famous for getting jobs and projects finished, and while he was extremely productive and effective, he loved a good time. Together we would take on colossal tasks, power through our to-do lists, and then David would announce it was time to reward ourselves. Sometimes that meant pulling together our change to get sodas from the vending machine down the hall. Other times it meant a trip to Lakota in the hospital lobby for lattes. He did enjoy a good latte. The hallmark of his management style was fun. He had to walk and talk down to an art form, and we accomplished a lot of business on long, rambling walks around campus. Lunches shared with David were both nutritional events, David's phrase, and business meetings. Some of his best ideas were concocted over an egg salad sandwich. David Oliver was an exuberant, joyful, clever, and remarkable man, and working for him was uplifting and inspiring. He was always available to provide guidance and advice. He took pleasure in others' accomplishments, and he enjoyed mentoring and encouraging. And that's what made him such a great person to work for. He gave me and countless others the tools and confidence we need to do the best job possible. David does live on through the many lives he has touched, and he will live on in me as I continue to ask myself on a daily basis, how would David handle this? Thank you.